raboko soko, mahanda akasata, reke yamanda raboko sokota, ronda yakande eke seke la mama manda rabakase, meta rabakande la babakaso, yalamana niana no, sakayato yakande, ya makato yabatadia city akano yakatara city. Power!
Okay. We
Isn't
are
Steph
not
looking especially pretty today, Misha? Don't you agree?
What are you
I don't know if Lance ever gives you compliments like
What
that.
are you doing? You're so funny.
But I don't know. I'm trying to model good behavior for your marriage. That's how we feel. We feel like you're our child because we don't have kids, right?
I'm barren. Yeah.
I
What are the
think it's
odds?
funnier if I say I'm barren.
Yeah, because you saying Steph's barren, not so funny.
Not so funny. People puts a chill in the crowd.
Always like,
Oh.
oh God. Yeah, I don't have kids. I had to be barren because it wasn't like anyways. Okay, here we go. We are not flies. Hey, Jimmy, are you planning to come back to Portland, Oregon this year?
Yeah, we were just there though, right? We were there.
I was trying to figure out.
Oh yeah.
What was it, Helium?
Oh really?
So a year ago. How do you remember? I can't remember at all. We have a fan group of independent journalists, and we all miss you. The city desperately needs your energy here.
Oh, definitely. We sold out the Aladdin Theater, so there's a lot of people.
Aladdin, I love the Aladdin.
People are thirsty for some kind of anti-woke stuff.
Oh my gosh, but not in Seattle.
Seattle, yes, they are also. We sold lots of tickets in Seattle.
Yeah, we sold lots of tickets, but the theater's challenging.
It's the belly of the beast for sure.
Right? Louise, lucky show number 7, girl. Remember? What?
That's where the woman said that someone.
Oh yeah.
One of our fans almost slapped her on the ass. How do you? What? I have a feeling. Why didn't you call the cops? Hey, he almost slapped me. How do you almost?
Anyway. You go, I'm not slapping you. I'm not slapping you.
All right, let me see what I got here. Thank you very much, Gino. Gino, I'm not sure what to make of this because you're using capitals and it seems like I should be shouting it. Murder some shit, Jimmy. Kurt, don't mince a single word. Black History Month, 28 days. What a fucking joke. Took a turn, Gino, at the end there. Took a turn. What does J.D. Vance about pro-Palestinian students in America, though, Jimmy? It's a good question about, how Trump doesn't.
Yeah,
go ahead, Jimmy.
They're not. They're actually okay, and I fear that they're also aiding and abetting the censoring of pro-Palestinian voices. Trump has called for it. Trump has called for deporting pro-Palestinian foreign students, which, by the way, I found out they're doing.
Are they?
So that's the great Achilles heel of the free speech Donald Trump, J.D. Vance.
You're gonna go wag your finger, but let's look over here. What's happening here? All right, thank you. We're back. There's a direct link to what you're seeing today, and Operation Paperclip and Gladio. Solidus. Thank you, Solidus. Professional Sith, or is it Scythe? The real propaganda is the victimhood of Jews by Nazis. That is a false narrative that, if ever is exposed, will wake up the world to finally fight for freedom. Professional.
What? Listen, Jehovah's Witnesses were in them camps too. So you don't got to take a Jew's word for it. There were other people there that saw the whole thing. What are you talking about? I mean, what an idiot.
I was confused. I read them.
Are you an idiot?
I read them and I try not to judge them. I judge them later with Misha. Usually.
Well, I'm going to come out and judge it because I'm like.
Oh, I love it when you do.
There's a guy that wants me to believe Sandusky didn't do it. And I don't know if he's related to this guy, but I'll bet you they're connected. Shut up about Sandusky. He did it. Okay. And also, let's not try to vindicate Hitler. Hey, let's just take the whole anti-Semitism thing out of it. You think he was good aside from that? He wasn't. Like, he sucked. Take the whole genocidal thing out. He wasn't that good. I know Kanye loves him, but.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was just another moment with Kurt's Corner. Thank you so much. Goo81. Don't worry, Kurt. The crying politician was awarded Sean Penn's Oscar. Goo81.
Yeah, Sean Penn's a good crier.
Yeah. Goo81. Don't forget they are fighting anti-Semitism while Israel invited Azov Battalion to give IDF motivational talk. Also, Israel funded Azov Battalion before 2022. According to Goo81, Decimal threat, approved speech is far from free speech. Look at you, Decimal. Jimmy, be careful as we have similar laws in Aussie now. Wow.
Yeah, I
Depressing, know. Pete. Goo81, did you hear about an American-Israeli shooting 2 Israeli tourists in the U.S. thinking they are Palestinians? The tourists survived and still said on their X account, "Death to Arabs." Goo81. Did not read that one. I like this one.
Whoopsie-doodle.
Yeah, whoopsie-doodle. Just Decimal Threat said, approved speech is far from free speech. I read it again, but I had to. I just had to. Kurt, my real name, says, you are a universal treasure. We must protect him at all costs.
At all costs.
At all
even
costs.
your own lives
Yes.
and those of your family.
Yeah, I think so.
Is that too much to ask?
No
Treat
effing
me
around.
Like Ukraine. More important than you.
How many countries in Europe is illegal to question the Holocaust? Google it. Uh-oh. Hold on. That's Ignorance is Bliss. Thank you, Ignorance is Bliss. Hey, Goebbels, I have the natural intention to be and to remain the warm-hearted protector of the German press. Jay, thank you, Jay.
Do you know why it's illegal?
That was
because a bunch of Nazis made a deal to pretend like they care about that. But we brought all these Nazis here. Like, if you're worried about defending Germany, don't worry. All the best and brightest came over here and set our policy for many years.
Here in South America, right? Hey, my drummer.
Here a lot.
Free speech caused the Holocaust. Is Margaret Brennan auditioning for The View?
Okay.
Look at you. That's a nice one. Back to Jim.
So Jen Psaki, who hosts her own show, she used to be Joe Biden's professional liar, her press secretary, and then she went over to MSNBC. Oh, I've got a video of her I wanted to show where she says we have to stop pushing that Trump's a fascist. We have to,
Oh, really?
Yeah, I forgot to show that. I want to show that.
The embargo's been lifted on, now you can say he's not a fascist?
Yeah, she goes, we got to stop saying that. She said that.
Well, you tell me now.
So here, Jen Psaki asks, do they, at MSNBC, do they come to you every day and go, here's what we think is important to preserve the fight for whatever? Here, listen to what she says. Watch this.
Here at MSNBC, do they come to you every day and go, here's what we think is important to preserve and fight for whatever?
No, everybody gets a zillion press releases and pitch calls, but no.
No. I'm talking about the head of it.
Oh, no. You determine, we determine, each of us for our shows, here's what I'm going to cover today, and here's what I'm going to talk about.
How weird.
Here's
You're
what I
always
think
in
is important.
lockstep.
Which there is an...
It's weird. That's weird because I remember they fired 3 Muslim news readers, so teleprompter chimps, right after October 7th. Isn't that funny? So you guys get to say whatever you want. Well, I've got a million examples how she's wrong about that. Just give me 1 second. Let's hear the rest of what she has to say.
Independence-ish of that. And there also is, you're not waiting to be told what to say about anything. You're going to say what you think. So people can trust that, and that is a good thing.
See, I disagree with that. I think it's not that you're able to be independent. It's that you're then a prisoner purely to the minute by minutes. Purely
You mean
to
in terms of ratings?
the ratings, incentives, and all those other things. If you don't have the ideological component, right?
So this is Jon Stewart making it out to be that that there isn't a thing called manufacturing consent. Like, this is a guy who's supposed to be a media critic, and he doesn't understand what manufacturing consent is, that the news media is there to manufacture consent. The billionaire-owned, funded by Wall Street and the military-industrial complex, is there to give you propaganda to manufacture consent for the establishment's narrative that's not there to give you news or information. And he's I love how he pretends to be the dumbest guy in the world. Why he didn't have a better acting career, I don't understand. Because he's really good at pretending he's the dumbest guy. I know he knows better. I know he knows better than this. He's always going to chalk it up all to, you're just a prisoner of ratings, right? You mean the ratings that say you have to push pro-war lies all the time? You mean that? How you have to be constantly pushing pro-war narratives and not telling people the truth? And that, like, it's just like when you pinned a medal on a Nazi at Disney World and you never talked about it. Nobody ever questioned you. She's not going to ask you about it because you don't have to, and nobody has to tell her not to ask you about it. You know how no one has to tell her not to ask you about the Nazi medal you pinned on a Nazi?
Well, she probably doesn't know, in fairness. She probably
Nobody has to tell her that. Just like nobody has to tell you not to ask her, why didn't you ever tell people about the 2014 Maidan coup and how the United States and the CIA overthrew the democratically elected government and how NATO provoked that war and how the Ukrainians and NATO are the ones who killed the peace deal that they already had signed in a month after the war started. And also, they also broke the Minsk Accords, which was the peace deal. How come nobody ever tells her? And how about how come nobody has to tell him not to bring that up? Because if he was the kind of guy who would bring that up, he wouldn't be hosting a show on Comedy Central.
Yeah.
That's why. And if she was the kind of person who brought that up, she wouldn't be hosting a show on MSNBC. That's why.
Right.
And so now Jon Stewart is going to pretend that she's just a prisoner of ratings. Which is ironic because MSNBC doesn't have any fucking ratings.
Yeah, what are you talking about? Ratings? A prisoner of ratings.
What? Let me back this up.
That's a good thing.
See, I disagree with that. I think it's not that you're able to be independent. It's that you're then a prisoner purely to the minute by minutes. Purely
You mean
to
in terms of ratings?
the ratings incentives and all those other things. If you don't have the ideological component, right, then you don't have a governing authority of editorial authority, right? The greatest trick Roger Ailes ever played was he delegitimized editorial authority while exercising absolute steel trapdoor editorial authority.
The greatest thing he did because it led them to be an arm piece, a mouthpiece of the right wing.
It led them to be exactly what he wanted it to be, which is an effective expression of his worldview.
And MSNBC, I am unburdened by not having, I can share whatever I think. I have obviously worked in Democratic politics for 20 years. I don't have anything about that.
So she doesn't have anything that she wants to share that would get her fired from MSNBC, like those 3 Muslim news guys that they fired. Isn't that interesting?
She seems like the kind of blank who's like, I need a margarita and a yoga and blah, blah. She's like a midwit.
And in fact, when they fired them, she didn't say shit. She didn't have anything to say about it. I just didn't have anything to say about it.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
Well, I mean, a blind eye will serve you better to get to power.
It is a progressive-leaning network. But nobody
She calls it a progressive-leaning network. It's a progressive-leaning... unless progress means always... Progressive, you mean progressive meaning like we always support war and censorship and conspiracy theories about our political enemies and weaponizing the justice system to prosecute our political... I mean, that kind of progressiveness?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I do.
Progressive leaning.
Is, to the frustration at times of many elected Democrats, it is not a mouthpiece of the Democratic Party.
Really?
MSNBC. So let's remember, this is Noam Chomsky having a similar conversation, except he wasn't pretending to be stupid like Jon Stewart. Watch this.
Self-censoring.
No, not self-censoring. There's a filtering system that starts in kindergarten.
In kindergarten.
All the way through.
Like I told that guy from NBC News, when he says, Jimmy, I don't know what you think we talk about in these editorial meetings. And I go, yeah, I'll never know exactly because I'll never be invited into one. Whereas you've been groomed to be in that editorial meeting since you were in kindergarten and you don't know it. And that's what Noam Chomsky's saying right here. This guy's saying, I don't censor myself. I'm not censored and I don't do self-censoring. And here's what Chomsky says there.
Self-censoring.
No, not self-censoring. There's a filtering system that starts in kindergarten. It goes all the way through. And it doesn't work 100%, but it's pretty effective. It selects for obedience.
Obedience.
And especially, I think...
So stroppy people won't make it to
there'll
positions of
be
influence.
behavior problems, or if you read applications to a graduate school, you see that people will tell you he's not, doesn't get along too well with his colleagues. You know how to interpret those things.
I'm just interested in this because I was brought up, like a lot of people, probably post the Watergate film and so on, to believe that journalism was a crusading craft and that there were a lot of disputatious, stroppy, difficult people in journalism. And I have to say, I think I know some of them.
Well, I know some of the best and best-known investigative reporters in the United States. I won't mention names because I don't want to, whose attitude toward the media is much more cynical than mine. In fact, they regard the media as a sham, and they know and they consciously talk about how they try to play it like a violin. If they see a little opening, they'll try to squeeze something in that ordinarily wouldn't make it through. And it's perfectly true that I'm sure you're speaking for the majority of journalists who are trained, have it driven into their heads that this is a crusading profession, adversarial, we stand up against power, a very self-serving view. On the other hand, in my opinion, I hate to make a value judgment, but the better journalists, and in fact the ones who are often regarded as the best journalists, have quite a different picture, and I think a very realistic one.
How can you know that I'm self-censoring? How can you
I
know
don't say
that
you're
journalists
self-censoring. I'm sure you believe everything you're saying. But what I'm saying is if you believe something different, you wouldn't be sitting where you're sitting.
I think you believe everything you're saying. I'm saying if you believe something different, you wouldn't have that frickin' job as a journalist for a corporate pro-war news organization.
You're clearly a proud product of a long line of British inbreeding to make you suggestible and obedient. And kindergarten, that's the Prussian school. We imported that from Prussia. Horace Mann School in New York. That's the guy who brought it. And it's exactly what Noam Chomsky just said. It's to put you, designate who's the behavior problems and who's not. And so all the kids know who's the dumb one and who's the smart one. And you get rewarded early for obedience.
Imagine knowing what Noam Chomsky knows and still calling for vaccination concentration camps.
Yeah, he's dark. He's dark.
I mean, that was Noam Chomsky, pre-fascist lockdown Chomsky. That's my favorite Chomsky.
He's saying the stuff there. I mean, I don't know what year this is. It looks like 80s hair to me, but The stuff he's saying is that means he knows all about the Prussian school because he's highly educated and he knows exactly how they intended to train people not to question things out of the. That's why all the education is psychological and the teachers don't really have to know the subjects. You know, you hear those, oh, English, they don't have English requirements for the teachers anymore. Well, that's never been the job. The job has been 9/10 of it on purpose designed to be behavioral modification.